Well, Arthur Machen, of course, from my neck of the woods, as it were, really, is from Caerleon. I'm from Newport. Caerleon is, just at the end of a concourse, really, outside of Newport. We share an MP, let's put it that way, when I lived in Newport. And that's where he kind of plugged into this idea of ancient evils and ancient myths. He is, I think, with Edgar Allan Poe and H.P. Lovecraft and possibly John Chambers, one of the founding fathers of horror as we understand it. You can say modern horror, but horror doesn't really exist before these 19th century writers, unless you think of the horrificness of things like, I don't know, Titus Andronicus or the stuff John Webster was doing. Then or Macbeth even, you could count these things as horror. I'm riffing now, but even Bunyan or Dante, you could or the Bible. The Bible, without doubt, is a horror book. The Bible is a horror movie. There's your tagline. But Machen is a very interesting character who I wrote about in my book. The Great God Pan, famously his novel, championed by Stephen King, nonetheless. No less, not nonetheless, no less, as the great horror novel. He, rather like Lovecraft, although completely disconnected from Lovecraft, they probably, I don't know, but I would imagine they weren't even that aware of each other. And with Chambers, but Machen, without doubt, very much connected with the idea of mad scientist horror, and scientists stumbling upon ideas that they were not supposed to be finding ways into, opening gateways and unearthing ancient ideas that have been long lost. Those things have never really left us since writers like the ones I've mentioned, including Arthur Machen, started writing about them. They've never really left us. They continue in contemporary horror of 2024, but most notably in things like Clive Barker's work, and so influential in itself. So yeah, Arthur Machen, deeply interesting writer, and a really great one. His work stands up really well. The Great God Pan stands up really well. Can't understand why there hasn't been any sort of big cinematic interpretation of his work, really. But yeah, and another example of why Welsh writing is so important and influential, because it stretches from detective to horror to romance to industrial to experimental to modernist to postmodernist. There's a huge array of things going on that when not ignored, their Welshness is almost entirely obliterated from the story.